Hello, everyone, and welcome to Picture the Scene podcast, hosted by me, Andrew.
And me, Rachel.
Now, please note, this is a true crime podcast, so listener caution is advised. Rachel, it's now 2022. Does that make you feel old?
It makes me feel very old, especially when you call out that it's now 2022 and does it make you feel old? And then all of a sudden it smacks me. And yes, I can't believe we're in 22. Yeah, it's bring on the year ahead.
It depresses me when I think how old I am. But so, what did you get up to during the hiatus over the holiday season?
I had a lovely time off, spent some time with the family, spent plenty of time drinking and enjoying Christmas festivities. And actually, this year, probably for the first time, I was pretty organized. I'm not going to say completely organized because there's always last minute dashes, but yeah, I was pretty ahead of the game this time, which was good. How about you?
I enjoyed myself. Ate too much and stayed up too late, but yeah, no, it was good. What did you get for Christmas?
I did not get a Breville toasty maker. Sorry to upset you, even though I was in the queue. This will make everyone laugh. So it was Christmas Eve, and I was in Curry's in the queue for a last minute gift, as you do. Glad I didn't lie about being over prepared. And there's a guy in front of me buying a Breville toasty maker. So obviously, I took a photo, had to document it, momentous occasion, and send it to Andrew.
I know. I tell you what, when you got that photograph, at first I was like, why is she sending me a picture of a random person behind the till? And I was just trying to think, like, what's this? Is it supposed to be funny or something? And then I looked at it again, I was like, he's buying a Breville. And,
Brilliant.
my life again felt complete. But
Listen, he was very excited about his purchase.
I do have to admit, though, my heart breaks a little bit to hear that you didn't get a Breville.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I did pretty well. Out of it, got a nice pair of boots and a coat. So yeah,
Nice.
not bad, not bad. What about you? Did you get anything?
Well, I'm not a big, like, I'm quite happy with what I have in life, but
Yeah.
I'm very hard to buy for. But my wife bought me a new controller for my Xbox, and that made me happy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's all relevant, isn't it? If that's what like you're into. What are you playing on the Xbox?
What am I playing? I see. I'm showing my age, but I've been playing the same game for about 30 years, but on different systems and called Civilization. So I play that, and I play Football Manager, and I play just anything that isn't too complex, like all these running around shooting people that all the youngsters play. I can't even kill anyone. I die straight away. So I tend to play anything that I can fall asleep to, wake up, and I'm still there, able to carry on playing.
I feel like you definitely I feel like you definitely started on the PC like all them years ago.
Actually, I
PC gaming.
I started playing that game on the Commodore Amiga, and then I moved to a 486 PC. So before even Pentiums, but let's not talk about computers because people be turning off in their droves.
Yeah, I am just going to mention it was a sad day for BlackBerry users today, though. They
Oh,
officially completely shut off BlackBerry.
oh,
That's like
really?
gone forever. Yeah, I reckon it'll be similar to floppy disks where people will ask how on earth Blackberries were ever around. So
Oh,
yeah, R.I.P. the BlackBerry.
I'm shocked by that. My first ever company phone, BlackBerry, and then I got exposed to BlackBerry Messenger. Wow.
I know, yeah,
And
game changer.
that poker game. Oh, do you know what? You're breaking my heart. No, Bravo.
I'm
Blackberry's
sorry.
gone.
I'm sorry. Let's get on. Let's get into true crime.
Yeah, although it's a crime what you keep telling me. But but let's go on. Um, but today I'm going to be talking about the biggest jewelry shop heist in British history. So
Ooh.
something a little bit different. I thought I'd stay away from some murders, or maybe there might be one or two in there. But I thought I'd stay away from them if possible. But before we do get onto content, I want to do my usual begging spiel and ask all of you listening out there to make us happier. Actually, to make us happier than the feeling you get when you take a sip of your cup of tea when it's just the right temperature, not too hot and not too cold. But then that's always moments before you forget about it for half an hour, so it goes too cold anyway. But there's a few seconds where you're like, oh, that's nice. And then you put it down and you go to get it again and it's gone.
I thought
Like
that was
life,
just
really.
me.
Yes. So please do go and subscribe and rate us if you like us, that is, whatever you can. If you don't like us, why are you listening? And you can now rate us on Spotify. We can be found on all the social medias. We're at ScenePod on Twitter and Instagram. That's at SCENEPOD. Or you can find us on Facebook by searching for Picture the Scene Podcast. Now that's out of the way with, if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like all of you listening to relax. Close your eyes and picture the scene. Today we're going to take you back to the 6th of August 2009 to the world-renowned and popular upmarket shopping area of Bond Street in the west of London, in Mayfair, if you know London. Now, Bond Street is popular with tourists, locals and celebrities alike, and it's not only one of the most sought-after strips of retail estate in Europe. It hosts shops like Fenwick, the jewellers Tiffany's, along with open market auction houses like Sotheby's and Bonhams. And for those of you who have been to London before, it links Piccadilly in the south to Oxford Street in the north.
You missed some major shops there, like actual shops that people go out their way to go to, like even just to look in the windows.
I'm not
where was Chanel, Gucci, Louis Vuitton? Come on.
You know, I did learn a few names over the holiday on Boxing Day or Stephen's Day or the 26th of December. I let my wife go out and I told her she could go buy herself a handbag. And she came back with some new names that I'd learned and an empty bank balance of mine. She came back with 2 Coach handbags and a Kate Spade, is it, handbag?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so 3 handbags in one day. And obviously...
Last time you gave her your card?
Yeah, now I've just got extra handbags, one for every day of the year. So, anyway, but on this day, sorry, Nicky, on this day, the 6th of August 2009, it was getting towards late afternoon, 4:40 p.m. to be exact, on a Thursday. It was a beautiful day, actually. There was no real wind, no rain, and at the time, the temperature was about 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was a beautiful shopping day. And I want to focus in on a particular shop on Bond Street, and that shop is Graf. Now, before I go into what happened, let me give you some context on the type of shop Graf is. It's a
I don't think I've heard of Graf.
Well, I don't mean to be offensive, Rachel, but it's probably above.
Don't get paid enough.
Over our pay grade, yes. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever hear of it.
No.
In real life, unless you're secretly rich, then obviously you're a wonderful person. So Graf it's a fine jewellers that designs, manufactures, and sells high-end jewellery. It was the first jewellers to be awarded the Queen's Award for Industry and Export, now known as the Queen's Award for Enterprise, and it's gone on to win that award for a further 4 times. Ooh. Now, I mention that award because it is classified by those that care to be considered the highest accolade that a British company can receive, and is only awarded on the advice of the current Prime Minister, following examinations of each application by a committee of leading representatives of industry and commerce.
Can I just say, like, a jewellery company could easily sway a Prime Minister's vote, though, by, I mean, obviously corruption, but, you know, discounts, free gifts. Not entirely confident that I trust the Prime Minister in making that decision. If it was the Queen's Award, like, send it to Queen Elizabeth herself. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. She may not be amused, but so, you know, if you fancy spending 6 or 7 figures on an item of jewellery, then that's the type of place you'd go to. However, you know, Rachel, if you had sense and fancied a new Breville, you'd possibly not go to that.
You could buy quite a few Brevils for a 6 or 7 figure sum.
it feels to me like they're missing a trick. Maybe they could make like a diamond encrusted one that the diamonds left patterned in your bread.
Oh,
Imagine that extra crunchy bits.
or, or like just cover the toasty in diamonds and have it as a centerpiece in your kitchen. Like the toasty maker, sorry, not the actual toasty,
I
because
was
that
gonna,
would be painful on your teeth.
yeah, and the dog would probably eat it. But yeah, no, you could do that. Yeah, I'll send them an email when we finish. So
Please do.
now back to that day, the 6th of October 2009. Two men dressed smartly in suits, looking like they have money to burn, pull up in a taxi to the upmarket jewellers. These type of shops, they're not the ones you can just walk into, however. They have locked doors and usually one or more security staff on the door. On this occasion, the security guard, actually there was three of them, looked him up and down, and while one of them was wearing gloves, he was used to the wealthy customers the shop had being eccentric, so it didn't raise any alarm, and he let them in via an airlocked security chamber. So it gives you an idea of the type of security that she had in the store. Now, once they were in, the manager of the shop, or for some reason, and I couldn't figure out why, they actually call it a salon, but you can't get your hair done. So, and it feels really odd calling it that. So I'm just going to call it a shop.
A shop.
They can
They've
ban me,
gone. They've gone through all that pain of like getting the most posh clientele they can possibly like muster up, and you're like, yeah, it's a shop.
yeah. Well, the manager of that shop, who was a Martin Leggett, greeted them warmly, probably hoping he had some potential expensive sales to make to them. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Rachel, that surely, or someone out there is thinking, surely if one of them was wearing gloves on a warm day in August, that'd raise alarm bells to the security. But in their defence, neither of the two men tried to disguise their faces, so that helped stop any worries the security staff had. And also, Martin, the shop manager, sorry, he actually was quoted as saying afterwards that he was used to celebrities going in the shop with big sunglasses or wigs or things like that, so they didn't get spotted. So a pair of gloves was nothing in comparison.
Yeah, and I also think nowadays in Rona world, you just don't question what people are wearing or doing in general because I appreciate this happened in 2009, obviously pre-Rona, but I didn't even flinch when you said that he was wearing gloves because I think we just now see it everywhere. But yeah, probably in 2009 in the middle of August, I'd have been like, what the flip?
Exactly. And I do love the fact that you can be on such close terms with a global pandemic that you've given it a nickname.
What have I called it? Rona.
Yes.
I'm just tired of it now. I don't even want to give it its full title.
You can call it Roy then. But um, as soon as Martin had greeted them, the two men proceeded to pull out a gun, which is rather rude. Both of them pulled out a gun and they forced Martin to the floor. They forced him to get into a spread eagle position. Now imagine you're making a snow angel, but the opposite way around, face down on the floor.
How to
Now,
how to make a gun confrontation not serious. Get down in the snow angel, but the other way around on the floor, please.
exactly. Uh, Now, another employee from the shop, Petra Inar, who was a shop assistant, was forced to empty the shop's cabinets with a gun pressed against her, telling her that they'd kill her if she didn't comply, and telling her to put the contents into a bag. Now, Petra was later quoted as saying she was terrified, and she said this: I was thinking I was going to be shot, that I was going to be killed. Now, this took a matter of a minute or two maximum. Actually, they was in and out of the shop in 2 minutes. That's how quickly they were. And they took 43 items in total, including earrings, necklaces, and watches, worth a total of £40 million.
So that's how rich this company is. They've only got 43 items in their shop and they can still afford to sell on Bond Street. That's insane.
I know. It's boggles your mind. And one of the items alone was a diamond necklace that cost £3.5 million. Imagine that. That'd be like,
No.
you wouldn't want to go out with it, would you? But they took, anyway, back to the story. They took Petra, the shop assistant. They took her hostage when they left the shop in order to help them escape. I know, that must be terrifying. And before I continue with what happened next, however, I want to ask, who were these people? And why did they think they could brazenly get away with no masks, robbing a shop that was covered in CCTV in the area of London that had CCTV everywhere? Even in 2009,
I
in
know.
Bond Street, everywhere had CCTV cameras. Now, I know before we've talked about stupid criminals, so you think maybe they were just stupid, but I don't think that's the case this time, because I want to answer that question for you. But in order to answer the question, I want to take you back a few hours in the day, and that day of the 6th of August 2009, and I want to introduce you to three men. One of them is a 25-year-old called Aman Kassé, who would turn out to be the mastermind behind all of this. And the other is, now are you waiting on his name, Rachel? It makes Baby Roy look like a distant memory. Now I want to introduce you to the second man who helped plan to rob the store, a man's right-hand man, as he would later be described in court, and his name was Thomas Thomas. That's Thomas, Rachel. Like, you'd think if your surname was Thomas, and it's a perfectly
That's just
normal,
mean.
it's a perfectly normal surname to have. It's not like it's unusual. What would you call your son?
Oh,
You're in the maternity ward. Oh, doesn't he look beautiful? Yeah, what are we going to call him? Oh, I don't know. What about Thomas? Like, Thomas.
His parents must have been high. There was a kid I went to school with, and his surname was Jackson, and his parents called him Michael. I just think that's mean.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have, but even like, yeah.
It's just mean though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is mean. It is very mean. If I had if I have a son, whatever I'm going to call him, I'm going to just put like 3 A's at the start of it, so they're always first in class. AAA Peter or something like that. It just, they'll thank me at a later date that they never have to wait for other people to be called.
You think that they'd thank you, Andrew, but the years of abuse and like bullying, then they're definitely not going to pass thanks to you. I'm sorry. Just going to throw that out there. And it is a real issue when you're naming your child to make sure that their initials don't equate to anything that could result in bullying. It's a minefield. There's a lot to consider when passing a name down to your child, but Thomas is just taking the piss.
Exactly. I just thought Thomas's parents, they could have actually called him like Carl.
Carl.
It could be, yeah, imagine that, because it could be like
Roy?
Carl with a C. So
Carl with a C.
It could be like Carl or Nigel Thomas. And then that'd be perfect, wouldn't it? I know you're trying to figure all that is out in your head there. Anyway.
I just worked it out. Rude. For a man that doesn't like to swear, that was inappropriate.
Well, I never swore, did I? It's in your head, Rachel. You're the bad person. Now, the third man accused of robbing the store with a man was a 26-year-old called Craig Coldwood.
Wait, I'm sorry. You keep on mentioning a man, and it sounds like you're just saying a man.
No, that's his name, a man.
I know. But now I just think, now we're moving on to the third person that robbed the store with a man. Sorry, go on.
Thanks. I'm going to be thinking about it every time I read his name now. So, a man and Craig earlier that day called Graphs, and they booked an appointment because you can't get in that store without an appointment. And so that's so they could get into the store. And after they'd done that, they drove to a professional makeup studio, and they told the artist that they were about to appear in a pop video, so they needed to be aged. They arrived at 11 a.m. that Thursday and told the staff, "Make us look 30 years older. We want to look like old men." Now the studio, they told the two men that it would take longer than 5 hours, that they had to do that. So they applied liquid latex to them, makeup,
Mm.
scout masks, along with wigs to complete the disguise. Now, when the makeup artists had completed their tasks on both men, a man was quoted as turning. I can't say that with a straight face now. A man was quoted as turning around to Craig after looking in the mirror and declaring that his own mother wouldn't even recognise him now. And with his colleague Craig saying this in response, that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? Now, I'm going to pop up a photograph of them on our social media of them in disguise and not in disguise, so you can judge for yourself if it was effective.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be great.
So then they took a black cab taxi to Graph's. Now, so let's get back to the robbery. Once outside the shop, they did fire one of the guns for the first time, but it wouldn't be the last. They fired a gun into the ground in order to scare people away from chasing them. As they ditched Petra, they handed the jewels over to someone on a motorbike and jumped into a blue BMW car and made their escape. Now, the blue BMW car, they made its way to Dover Street, but crashed into a black taxi cab as they tried to make their escape. Now, they left the BMW, but they were subsequently, and I don't think they planned for this, they were subsequently chased not only by a black cab driver, but also several drinkers from a nearby pub called Head. That just sounds like typical London. Get him, get them. But, so this is when one of the robbers pulled out his gun and fired again. This shows that they had no fear of discharging the weapons, but luckily no one was hurt. He fired into the ground again to stop the mob of people chasing them, and it worked.
I mean, they seem to be at least compassionate towards not hurting people. What do they say on the Seeing Red podcast? They say that robberies or heists are victimless crimes or something like that. And
yes.
I guess in this particular situation, they could have shot at people, couldn't they? They could have shot Petra. They could have shot the black cab driver that they crashed into. They could have stolen his cab. But they're definitely a little nicer than your average gun-wielding robbers.
Yeah,
I'd say.
probably. So they then got into a silver Mercedes, which they left it there in advance, and they turned left off Dover Street into Hay Hill, and then entered Berkeley Square. Now, the last of that was seen of them was getting into another car, a blue VW Sharon, and they ditched the silver Mercedes on Farm Street when they got into the blue VW Sharon. Now, it was unknown where they went after that. Now, the biker, remember they handed the jewels over to a biker?
Mm-hmm.
So very professional. The biker who had the jewels, the police tracked him on CCTV around London. So he was actually forced to abandon his Go Suzuki bike when it broke down just a short distance away in Berkeley Square. I know you've got to be unlucky, haven't you?
How unlucky is this?
But so the police, they did try to track him with CCTV, but they lost track of him when he entered Green Park, which is a very short distance from Buckingham Palace. So it's actually that, the park between the subway station and anyway,
taking a nice couple of walks through Green Park.
Yeah, I quite like it myself as well. But so the question I have to ask is, how did we know who the robbers were, and how did they get caught if they wore makeup to disguise their faces and they got away?
I feel like they've definitely done something stupid.
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer that question then. So when the man sorry, listeners.
Sorry.
It's Rachel's fault. When a man and his colleague crashed into the black taxi, they left behind a couple of things in haste, because obviously I think they were planning to stop on that street anyway, but not in an accident. The first off was a sawn-off shotgun and ammo, which it's a scary thought that they had that ready to use it if they wanted to. And the second being a mobile phone that had fallen out of a man's pocket in the accident, and it actually got wedged between the seat and the handbrake. Now, the phone was a burner phone, so it was untraceable. And all the numbers on the phone were anonymous. None of them had names associated with them. But because there was a number of phone numbers on there, they could track their numbers and make a pattern of where the people were and when the phone calls happened. So the police actually managed to track and identify the people involved in the robbery. So that's pretty unlucky. Now, a man from Twickenham in London, he was jailed for 23 years in total, which is a long time. 16 years for conspiracy to rob, 5 years for possessing a firearm, and a further 2 years for kidnap.
Do you know what? They give massive sentences for like theft and money laundering when it's involving like money, don't they? Like I know, well, I don't know murderers, but I know of murderers that have received lesser sentences for taking a life
Yeah.
and for planning to take a life. And yet, this guy who stole jewelry, which is inappropriate, obviously, and he obviously threatened with a gun, which wasn't nice, but he gets 23 years. That just feels a bit
Yeah,
nuts to me.
well, you can't really blame the judge because it's sentencing guidelines. Like, I know you see online lots of angry people.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of keyboard warriors online now, and they go, "Oh, why did he get this? Or why did he get that?" But you know, they have to go within a guideline, and
Fair
so,
enough.
yeah, I don't mean to not sound controversial, but when they
No,
say
it
that,
makes sense though.
so a man actually, the reason he got 20, yeah, I told you, he got 16 years for conspiracy to rob,
Mm.
5 years for possessing a firearm, and 2 years for kidnap. But Craig, it was actually Craig Calderwood. He wasn't originally found guilty or not guilty at his first trial. The jurors couldn't make a decision, so there was a mistrial. And he must have thought, wow, I've got away with this. But the police, being the police, subsequently took him straight back to court again. And this time he was found guilty. And he was given 16 years for conspiracy to rob and a further 5 years for possession of a firearm. So it was the same sentence, 16 years that a man got and 5 years for the firearm. But obviously, a man was the one who grabbed Petra and took her out into the street, which is why he got an extra 2 years on the top of that.
Yeah.
Now, 10 men in total were arrested in relation to this robbery, but only 5 were convicted. So I'm not going to mention the people who weren't convicted. They either was innocent or lucky, one of the two. Now, along with a man and Craig, Thomas, which is
Gotta say his full name.
what I thought we'd be laughing at, but a man's beating him to it. Thomas, his right hand man, along with a man's right hand man, along with Clinton Mogg and Solomon Bain. They were all sentenced to 16 years in total with the charge of conspiracy to rob. So you're talking about sentencing, the fact that all 5 of them got 16 years for conspiracy to rob, which is actually quite unusual that they get the identical sentence. So you got to remember that Craig got that on the second try round. So it's likely not to be the same judge that a man got. That shows that what probably happened is they taught him a lesson and they gave him the maximum possible, which I'm guessing is 16 years. But if I'm wrong, listeners, reach out and let me know. The biker, however, was never identified, and none of the stolen jewels were ever found.
So the one person, fair enough, he was running away with them, but he wasn't involved in the heist. He didn't get a gun out and threaten anyone. He didn't put a disguise on. He was just there on a bike waiting to take the jewels, and he got away.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Well, he may be one of the 5 people that they arrested. He just couldn't have any evidence. Who knows?
Yeah, fair enough.
I did try and do some maths here. It was widely figured that when there's a big professional robbery like this of jewellery, the robbers only ever get 10% of the true value of the jewels after you take away like fencing costs and stuff like that. So if you think about it, that'd be £4 million because the jewels were worth 40 million. Now 10 men charged, but only 5 convicted. So let's assume that there were 5 people involved along with the biker because we knew he existed. So that's 6 people. 4 million divided by 6 is 2/3 of a million each, assuming that it was split equally. Now, again, assuming that they all got out with no hassle, that means that the three men who got 16 years, they likely served about 8 years. And the man and Craig, about 10 and a half years each. So that's what, 60 to 80 grand a year compensation for being in prison, which is tax free. Because now I don't think they would have wanted to get arrested, but with no reports of a proceeds of crime order being put against them, they wouldn't be too upset with that, I don't think. Obviously, they'd want the freedom, but if they're coming out with a lump sum at the end of it, I'm
Mm.
not condoning what they did, but it's interesting to
No,
work that out when you're saying they've got a huge sentence.
but sometimes that's what they do, isn't it? Like if you're gonna participate in art robbery or jewelry and things like that, they will calculate the value of what they're stealing, and even money launderers as well. If they can keep part of their money in an offshore jurisdiction, basically well away from where people can find it, they'll calculate how much it'll cost to go to prison, and they'll weigh up that benefit, and they'll do the time if they have
Yeah,
to.
they will. Nowadays, though, they have proceeds of crime orders, which is what I mentioned. And what that is basically if you served, let's say you get a 10-year sentence, so you serve 5.
Hmm.
They'll put a proceeds of crime order, so they'll figure out how much you've either made off crime, so in this case stolen, and they'll say that's how much you have to pay back. Now, if you don't pay it back, you just go back to prison. You can't like default and go and like say go bankrupt or something. You either pay it back or you just get arrested again and go back to prison.
But
So
how do you say, for instance, you're claiming that that money's gone, like for instance, say this jewelry was robbed by the biker, ironically, and no one ever got the benefit of it. How do these men then raise the money to repay?
I don't know.
They pay like £20 a month for the next 80 years.
Yeah, 5 a month. I have absolutely no idea, Rachel. But so I see what you're
Sorry.
saying. I don't think it says. I don't think it's as clear as that nowadays because of the proceeds of crime orders in the UK anyway. It might be different abroad.
Mm.
But so let's get back to the jewels, however, and the
Yeah.
shop. Now, Graphs, they were very unlucky in more than one way when it came to this robbery. To begin with, they had to pay £100,000 excess to the insurance company. That's some excess. And they just to be able to claim the insurance, and they only got back just under £30 million from them because the policy made them liable for £10 million of the cost
Oh
of the
my God,
items.
that is a
So
bad insurance policy.
I know. So the fact that it now got found that the losers in this is a jewelry shop. Now the owned Graf is named after the owner. I can't remember his first name, but his surname's Graf. Then he's actually become a billionaire since he had all his shops and whatnot. So
I was
you
gonna
know,
say,
yeah,
I bet whoever had to pay that bill was fucking rich in the first place
yeah.
to have such an extortionate jewelry store.
Well, he's got a chain of them over the
Oh my God.
over the world in all the places we'd expect, like
Of
Paris,
course.
New York, and
I now don't feel sorry for him anymore.
yeah. Now the interesting thing is, not only was it the biggest heist for a jewelry shop in British history, at least at the time, can you guess which shop held the old record prior to this robbery?
No. Um, Tiffany's.
No, it was the same shop. 6 years earlier, it had been robbed of £23 million worth of jewels by the
Oh my
notorious
God.
European criminal gang, the Pink Panthers. So, in the space of 6 years, they lost £63 million worth of jewels. And actually, I'm not putting this in the script, so I'm saying this sadly, but he had another shop in Sloane Street in London, which is a smaller shop, and two men linked with the New York Mafia stole £2.5 million worth of jewels in between these two robberies with
No.
a hand grenade. So obviously they're targets.
I'm just going to throw it out there. Was this guy putting something on his Instagram or something similar saying, no one can rob me? I
Yeah,
dare you.
I know it's odd, but I know you love your facts, Rachel, and I
Yeah.
find no interesting fact for you. This robbery, it was the second biggest robbery at the time of anything in the UK, second only
Huh?
to the £53 million robbery at the Securitas depot 3 years prior to this robbery in 2006. But there's a link
Okay.
between this robbery and the biggest one 3 years earlier. And can you guess what that link is?
Same men.
No, it's not the same man. It was the same makeup studio. The same makeup studio had been duped 3 years
No.
earlier
Oh my
by,
God.
I know, by the robbers of the security cast depot wanting the same work done. So
I,
literally,
I'm just
I,
gonna
yeah.
throw it out there, right? A man was listening to podcasts or watching Crime Watch or reading books, and he saw these two crimes and then merged them together.
I know I know he was a small time drug dealer before this, so it's
No.
possible. It's possible. Who knows? But you've got to feel unlucky for the. Well, actually, the makeup studio they charge £450 each for doing what they did. So I guess they make some money. But
I mean, if I suppose looking at it with a glass half full perspective, you've done a good fucking job. Sorry about my swearing, but you have convinced the bodyguards on the door that you're legit, and then no CCTV has allowed the police to identify the men. They've had to rely on a burner phone, which could have quite easily not been left. So, like, I personally, if I was casting and needed some makeup artists, I'd probably be calling that studio.
I think you might be right because I was thinking about this, and I was originally thinking the opposite, thinking they were terrible because they when they put the description out on the people, they did release images from the CCTV, but they described them as men in their 30s. And I thought, well, they've not done too good a job of aging them. But I guess they've aged them for about 10 years. And you're right, they didn't get caught with the CCTV.
No.
So they obviously did a good job. So you've changed my mind there.
Well, there you go. No, but I do think that like things like that sometimes have a really random way of working in a positive way. Not obviously not for Graf and not for the men that got convicted, but actually probably the makeup studio is the place that came out on top with all of this because it's all press is good press, isn't it?
Quite possibly, yeah. Although the person who did the makeup, actually, until they got the people got caught, a man and Thomas, they actually had to go into protective custody because the police didn't know
Because
who it was and they knew it was a professional gang. So
oh, so they thought they might get a hit out on them.
yeah,
Fucking hell. You don't go into the life of a makeup artist, do you, thinking that you're going to be involved in like some criminal court case?
no, but they probably had that previous time in their head because what happened was when the police released the CCTV, the makeup studio phoned the police up and said, "Hang on, I think we did that." So that's how. But even
They-
a man and
that's pretty brave.
yeah, a man and Craig was clever though because I'm going off script here. They were clever because when they went to the makeup studio, they parked just out of view of CCTV, and so they never got caught of CCTV before the makeup was put on. So
Bravo.
again, they'd obviously planned all of that. And what do you think of this, Rachel? I picked it because it felt like a bit of a Hollywood storyline to me, a bit like Ocean's 11, with all the makeup and whatnot. So I thought I'd stay away from murder this time round and include it. Did you enjoy it?
I actually really enjoyed that. I think that it is nice to do something a little bit different. There's no death. It's obviously the first week of January of a new year. I'm glad that I will go to sleep tonight, not worried about what's going on out in the big wide world with some scary murderers.
Exactly. So, for one last time, I'd like you to relax, close your eyes, and picture the scene. I want you to picture that you're in a maternity ward, and it's the happiest day of your life. And you turn to your partner or your loved one who is with you, and you proudly proclaim that you love your son for the rest of your life. And then you get asked a question that will define your son's future. What are you going to call him? Now, I want you to give that some careful thought. So, thank you, Rachel, and thank you, everyone, for listening. We do say it every time, and we'll continue to say it, but please do give us your feedback. It's all welcome, as is that subscription wherever you listen to your podcasts. So, goodbye and God bless.
And before we sign off, Happy New Year as well. Forgot to say at the start of the episode.
Of course, Happy New Year, everyone. Stay happy. Go and buy a Breville machine.